The source of the Devourers lay hidden in the void between galaxies, a massive construct that had been consuming matter for millions of years. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Dominion and stared at the thing that had created their enemies. It was beautiful and terrible, a perfect sphere of dark metal the size of a moon, pulsing with energy that defied understanding. "Analysis complete, Admiral," reported his science officer, Commander Susan White. "The construct is generating new Devourer ships at a rate of 1,000 per day. It has been doing this for longer than our civilization has existed." Morrison nodded grimly. They had tracked the enemy back to its source, following quantum signatures through dark space to this hidden nightmare. If they could destroy it, the Devourer threat would end forever. If they failed, the galaxy would eventually fall. "Fleet status?" he asked. "All ships ready for final assault," replied Commander Park. "Planet crackers are charged and standing by. Fighter wings are deployed. Every weapon we have is aimed at that thing." The human fleet arrayed around the construct was the largest ever assembled. 200 capital ships, 1,000 destroyers, and 10,000 fighters formed a sphere of destruction around their target. At the center of the formation, the massive dreadnought Dominion carried weapons that could shatter worlds. Captain Tony Lewis piloted the experimental ship USS Prometheus through the outer defenses of the construct. His mission was the most dangerous of all: penetrate the enemy fortress and plant quantum charges in its core systems. The Prometheus was built for this exact purpose, its hull covered in stealth plating that made it nearly invisible. "Approaching the outer shell," Lewis reported to the fleet. "Defensive systems are active but not targeting us yet. Beginning penetration sequence." The Prometheus slipped through gaps in the construct's defenses like a ghost passing through walls. Around Lewis, automated systems fired weapons at targets they could not see. The enemy had learned to fear human technology, but they still could not detect the most advanced ships. Commander Kate Miller coordinated the largest display of human firepower the galaxy had ever seen. From her position aboard the command ship, USS Titan, she directed planet crackers in perfect synchronization. Each weapon was capable of splitting a world in half, and she had 12 of them aimed at the construct. "All planet crackers report ready," she announced to Admiral Morrison. "Firing solution locked, waiting for your order." Morrison watched as defensive systems around the construct began activating. Massive energy beams swept through space, vaporizing asteroids and small debris. The enemy knew they were under attack and was preparing to defend itself with everything it had. "Hold position," Morrison ordered. "Wait for Lewis to complete his mission." Inside the construct, Captain Lewis navigated through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The Prometheus moved silently through passages filled with machinery that had been running for eons. Everything was automated, built by intelligence, that had long since moved beyond the need for physical form. "Reaching the core chamber," Lewis reported. "Beginning placement of quantum charges." The core of the construct was a sphere of pure energy, contained within fields that distorted space itself. Lewis watched his instruments as the Prometheus planted charges that would collapse the containment fields. When they detonated, the energy would destroy the construct from within. Charges placed. Beginning withdrawal. But as Lewis turned to leave, alarms began sounding throughout the construct. The ancient intelligence that controlled this place had finally detected the intruder. Defensive systems that had been dormant for millions of years came online, filling the corridors with deadly energy. "Lewis, get out of there," Morrison ordered from the Dominion. "Working on it, sir," Lewis replied as he pushed the Prometheus to maximum speed. The ship raced through corridors that were collapsing behind it, automated systems trying to trap the intruder before it could escape. Outside the construct, the human fleet came under attack from weapons that dwarfed anything they had seen before. Energy beams the size of cities swept through space, forcing human ships to scatter and regroup. The enemy was fighting with the accumulated power of millions of years. Captain Amy Rodriguez commanded a squadron of heavy cruisers as they engaged defensive platforms around the construct. The USS Thunder and its sister ships fired continuously, their weapons coordinated by AI systems that could track thousands of targets simultaneously. "Target the energy projectors," Rodriguez ordered her weapons officer. "Take them down one by one." The battle was unlike anything humanity had fought before. The enemy had advantages in size and raw power, but human ships moved with precision that seemed supernatural. They appeared where they were least expected, struck at vulnerable points, and vanished before return fire could reach them. Captain Danny Hayes led fighter wings in attacks on the construct's surface. His pilots flew through defensive fire that could vaporize a ship in milliseconds, relying on reflexes enhanced by neural implants and AI assistance. Each fighter was connected to the others through quantum communication, allowing them to coordinate attacks with impossible precision. "Blue Squadron, target the sensor arrays," Hayes ordered. "Red Squadron, hit the power distribution nodes. Make them fight blind and helpless." The fighters swarmed over the construct like angry insects, their small size allowing them to slip through defenses designed to stop capital ships. They planted charges on critical systems and withdrew before the enemy could respond. Captain Pete Davis commanded stealth operations from the USS Shadow. His ship was invisible to enemy sensors, allowing him to coordinate attacks from within the defensive perimeter. He watched as human tactics slowly dismantled defenses that had stood for millions of years. "All stealth units, this is Shadow Actual," he broadcast on encrypted channels. "Enemy defensive grid is weakening. Prepare for final assault." Admiral Morrison watched the tactical display as the battle reached its climax. Captain Lewis had escaped the construct and was racing toward the fleet. The quantum charges would detonate in minutes, but the enemy was throwing everything it had at the human ships. "All planet crackers, prepare to fire," Morrison ordered. "We end this now." Commander Miller's voice was steady as she coordinated the final attack. "Planet crackers 1 through 12, you are cleared to engage. Fire when ready." 12 weapons that could crack worlds fired simultaneously. The combined energy beam was so intense it created a new star for several seconds. When the light faded, a massive hole had been punched through the construct's outer shell. The quantum charges Lewis had planted detonated at the same moment. The construct's core containment fields collapsed, releasing energy that had been building for millions of years. The ancient fortress began tearing itself apart from within, its own power source becoming its destruction. "All ships, withdraw to minimum safe distance," Morrison ordered. The human fleet pulled back as the construct died. The explosion was visible across several star systems, a brief new sun that announced the end of a threat older than civilization. When it finally faded, nothing remained but cooling debris and the silence of deep space. Captain Lewis brought the Prometheus alongside the Dominion, his mission complete. Around them, the human fleet began forming up for the journey home. They had won, but Morrison knew this was only one victory in an eternal war. "Signal all Federation worlds," he ordered. "Tell them the Devourer threat has been eliminated. The galaxy is safe." But even as he spoke, long-range sensors were detecting new threats in the darkness beyond the galactic rim. things that made the devourers look like simple machines. The universe was vast and hostile, and humanity would need to remain vigilant forever. Captain Zarath received the message on Sanctuary Prime and felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The humans had saved them all, but at a cost she was only beginning to understand. They had turned themselves into eternal guardians, giving up their humanity to protect those who could not protect themselves. Admiral Morrison stood alone on the observation deck of the Dominion and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among them, his family's descendants lived in peace, never knowing that ancient war machines prowled the darkness to keep them safe. It was a price he had gladly paid. "Admiral," Commander Parks said as she joined him at the window. "Orders for the fleet?" "Return to patrol stations," Morrison replied. "The galaxy sleeps, and we stand watch. As always." The human ships scattered to their hidden bases and secret installations, disappearing back into the darkness between stars. They would wait and watch, ready to answer the next distress call, prepared to face the next threat. The ancient war machines of humanity had fulfilled their purpose once again, and they would continue to do so until the end of time. The Federation Council chambers had never seen anything like this. Representatives from a dozen species sat in stunned silence as Admiral Morrison explained what humanity had become during their 3 centuries in the dark. The holographic displays showed fleets of impossible size, weapons that defied understanding, and soldiers who fought like living gods. "You said you were explorers," said Council Leader Varchin, his tentacles writhing with agitation. "You claim to be peaceful beings who sought knowledge and friendship." Morrison stood calmly before the assembly, his hands clasped behind his back. "We were, and we still are, in our own way. But we learned something during our travels that the Federation never understood. Peace is not the absence of war. Peace is what happens when those who can fight choose not to." Captain Zarath watched from the gallery as Federation leaders struggled to comprehend what they were hearing. She had seen human ships in action, watched them destroy enemy fleets with casual efficiency. The beings who had once shared meals and stories with her people had become something else entirely. "Show them the Titan yards," Morrison said to his aide, Commander Park. The main display shifted to show massive construction facilities orbiting Saturn's largest moon. Ships the size of cities moved through automated assembly lines, each one bristling with weapons that could level continents. The scale was breathtaking and terrifying. "We built this while you pursued art and philosophy," Morrison explained. "Every day for 300 years we prepared for threats you could not imagine. We turned ourselves into the sword and shield of the galaxy whether you wanted us to or not." On the occupied world of Kepler 442b, Colonel Maria Santos led her assault troops through the ruins of what had once been a beautiful city. The Devourers had consumed most of the infrastructure, leaving behind only the parts they found useful. Millions of alien civilians huddled in underground shelters, too afraid to emerge. "Contact the enemy position," Santos ordered her squad leader, Sergeant Kyle Johnson. "Let them know we are here." Johnson nodded and activated his powered armors. Speakers. His voice echoed through the empty streets with mechanical amplification. "Devourer forces, this is the human military. You have 60 seconds to surrender or withdraw. After that, we will consider you hostile and act accordingly." The response came in the form of energy beams that struck Johnson's armor and bounced off harmlessly. The powered suit absorbed the impact and converted it to additional power for his weapon systems. "Poor choice," Santos said into her communications device. "All units, weapons free. Show them what 300 years of military evolution looks like. The human soldiers moved through the city like unstoppable forces of nature. Their armor made them nearly invincible, while their weapons cut through devourer machines like hot knives through butter. Each soldier carried enough firepower to destroy a building, and their coordination was perfect. Lieutenant Beth Williams crouched behind cover and painted targets with her laser designator. Seconds later, orbital strikes from the USS Thunder eliminated devourer positions with surgical precision. The enemy machines tried to adapt, but human tactics were always one step ahead. "How do they coordinate so perfectly?" asked a Federation observer who was watching the battle from orbit. Captain Rodriguez, commanding the Thunder, answered without taking her eyes off the tactical display. "Neural link networks. Each soldier is connected to the others through quantum communication systems. They think as one mind while maintaining individual creativity. It is what made us the perfect warriors." The battle for Kepler 442b lasted 12 hours. When it ended, every devourer machine had been destroyed, and the alien civilians were free. The human soldiers had not lost a single person. In the hidden laboratories beneath Europa, Dr. William Hayes worked on technologies that the Federation could barely comprehend. His brother Danny commanded fleets, but William created the weapons those fleets carried. Each invention was designed with one purpose: to face the unknown and win. "Okay, goes the quantum disruptor project?" asked his assistant, Dr. Laura Thompson. "Ready for field testing," William replied as he sealed the prototype device. "This should be able to destabilize matter at the subatomic level. Anything it hits will simply cease to exist." Thompson looked nervous. "Is it safe?" "Safe is not the point. Effective is the point. We did not become the guardians of the galaxy by playing it safe." On the bridge of the stealth destroyer USS Shadow, Captain Pete Davis monitored enemy communications across 3 star systems. His ship was invisible to all known sensors, and its passive detection arrays could hear whispers across light years. He was humanity's eyes and ears in the dark. "Enemy fleet movements in the Vega system," reported his intelligence officer, Lieutenant Carol Miller. "They are massing for another attack on Federation territory." Numbers and composition: 1,500 ships, including several new classes we have not seen before. Estimated arrival at target system in 48 hours. Davis nodded and prepared his report for Admiral Morrison. The enemy was adapting faster than expected, building new ships and developing new tactics. But humanity had been adapting for 3 centuries. Back in the Federation Council chambers, the alien leaders were struggling to accept their new reality. The humans they had known were gone, replaced by beings who treated war like a science and violence like an art form. "What do you want from us?" asked Councillor Velmek of the Altarian delegation. Morrison considered the question carefully. "Nothing. We do not fight for glory or conquest. We fight because someone must. The galaxy is full of peaceful species who cannot defend themselves against threats like the Devourers. We made ourselves into the monsters that hunt monsters, so you could continue to be what you are." "But at what cost?" Zarath asked from the gallery. "You have turned yourselves into weapons. What happens when there are no more enemies to fight?" Morrison's smile was cold and sad. "There will always be enemies, Captain. The universe is vast and dark, and it is full of things that want to destroy everything we have built. When we left the Federation, we thought we could find a place where war did not exist. Instead, we learned that war is the natural state of existence. Peace is the exception, not the rule. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had not evolved beyond war. They had evolved to master it completely. The Devourers were just the beginning, Morrison continued. Our long-range sensors have detected other threats moving through dark space. Machine intelligences, hive minds, energy beings that consume stars, things that make the Devourers look like children playing with toys. He gestured to the display showing human fleet positions throughout the galaxy. We have placed ourselves between those threats and the civilized worlds. We are the shield that protects the light from the darkness, and we will hold that line until the stars grow cold. Captain Rodriguez received new orders while orbiting the liberated world of Kepler 442b. Another threat had been detected in the outer rim, something that made Devourer technology look primitive. The USS Thunder and its battle group would investigate and, if necessary, destroy it. Plot a course for the Andromeda approach vector, she ordered her navigator. Maximum burn. Let us see what the universe has sent us this time. As human ships moved to meet this new threat, the Federation worlds slept peacefully, protected by guardians they barely understood. The ancient war machines of humanity prowled the darkness between stars, eternally vigilant, eternally ready. They had become exactly what the galaxy needed them to be, even if no one else could understand the price they had paid to get there. The war room aboard the USS Vengeance hummed with quiet activity as Admiral Morrison studied the galaxy map. Red zones marked systems the Devourers had consumed. Yellow zones showed their current positions. Blue zones represented human fleet positions. The pattern was clear. The Devourers were moving toward the galactic core, consuming everything in their path. They are not random raiders, Morrison said to his assembled captains. They have a plan. They want something at the center of the galaxy. Captain Hayes leaned forward in his chair. What could be there that they want? Commander Park pulled up a detailed scan of the galactic core. Long-range sensors detect massive energy signatures. Something is generating power on a scale we have never seen before. If the Devourers reach it and consume it, they could become unstoppable. Morrison nodded grimly. Then we stop them here. How many ships do we have ready for deployment? 50 capital ships, 300 destroyers, and over 5,000 fighters, replied Captain Rodriguez. The automated yards are building more, but they need time. Time we do not have. The Devourers will reach the core in 30 days. Morrison touched the display, highlighting a system called Nexus Point. This is where we make our stand. It is the only hyperspace route to the galactic center. If we can hold this system, we can stop their advance. Captain Chen studied the tactical display. Intelligence estimates show they will bring everything they have. Over 2,000 ships, maybe more. We will be outnumbered 4-1. Good odds, Morrison said with a cold smile. Deploy all fleets to Nexus Point. We end this now. The human armada assembled in the darkness between stars. Ships that had been hidden for centuries emerged from their hiding places and joined the formation. The massive dreadnought USS Retribution arrived from the Centauri yards, its hull bristling with weapons that could crack planets. The carrier USS Warhawk launched fighter wings that filled space with deadly metal insects. Captain Amy Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the USS Thunder and watched the fleet take formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of military engineering, built not for glory or conquest, but for one simple purpose: to protect those who could not protect themselves. Captain, we are receiving orders from the flagship, reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Kyle Johnson. We are to take position in the center of the formation and prepare for heavy engagement. Rodriguez nodded. The Thunder was designed to be the anchor of any battle line, its heavy armor and devastating weapons perfect for sustained combat. Around her, other ships moved into their assigned positions with the precision of a military parade. On the destroyer, USS Lightning, Captain Pete Davis reviewed his mission orders one more time. His ship would lead the advanced screen, using its superior speed and stealth systems to gather intelligence on enemy movements. It was dangerous work, but the Lightning was built for it. "All stations report ready, Captain," said his first officer, Commander Kate Miller. "Stealth systems are online. We are invisible to standard sensors." "Take us in, Commander. Let us see what we are up against." The Lightning slipped through hyperspace like a ghost, emerging in the Nexus point system hours before the main fleet. Davis watched his screens as Devourer ships began appearing at the edge of the system. The enemy fleet was massive, larger than intelligence had predicted. "Count them," he ordered. 3,000 ships and growing," replied his sensor operator, Sergeant Beth Williams. "Multiple ship classes, including vessels we have never seen before. Some of these things are the size of space stations." Davis transmitted the data back to Admiral Morrison and prepared to withdraw. But as the Lightning turned to leave, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "Captain, we have been detected," Williams reported. "Devourer ships are moving to intercept." "How did they see us?" "Unknown, sir. Our stealth systems are functioning normally." Davis realized that the enemy had adapted since their last encounter. The Devourers were learning, evolving their technology to counter human advantages. This would not be as easy as the battle at Sanctuary Prime. "All ships, this is Lightning," he broadcast on the emergency channel. "Enemy has new sensor technology. Stealth may be compromised. Recommend immediate deployment of all available forces. Admiral." Morrison received the warning just as his main fleet arrived at Nexus Point. The Devourer Armada was waiting for them, arranged in a formation that seemed designed to counter human tactics. The enemy had studied their previous battles and learned from them. "They know how we fight," Morrison said to his staff. "This changes things." "Orders, sir?" asked Commander Park. Morrison studied the tactical display for a long moment. The human fleet was outnumbered 3-1, and the enemy had adapted to their methods. A conventional attack would fail, but humanity had not survived for 300 years by fighting conventional battles. "Signal all ships," he said. "Deploy formation. Omega, it is time to show them what we really brought to this fight. Formation." Omega was something the human fleet had never used before. It was a theoretical battle plan designed for fighting an enemy that had adapted to all their standard tactics. As the order went out, human ships began moving into positions. That seemed random and chaotic. Captain Rodriguez felt her stomach drop as the USS Thunder dove toward the enemy formation at maximum acceleration. Around her, other ships were doing the same thing, each vessel charging directly at the massive Devourer fleet. It looked like a suicide attack. "Captain, we are taking fire," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Tony Lewis. "Enemy weapons are targeting our approach vector." "Maintain course," Rodriguez ordered. "Trust the plan." The Devourer fleet concentrated their fire on the approaching human ships, expecting to destroy them before they could reach effective weapons range. But, as their weapons fired, something impossible happened. The human ships simply were not where the targeting computers said they should be. Captain Chen watched from the bridge of the USS Retribution as space around him filled with enemy weapons fire. Beams of energy and clouds of projectiles saturated. the area where his ship had been moments before. But the retribution was elsewhere, having jumped through micro-hyperspace tunnels that lasted only seconds. "Phase 2, Morrison ordered. The human ships that had seemed to be charging to their deaths suddenly appeared behind the Devourer formation. They had used a combination of hyperspace jumps and stealth technology to completely reverse their positions. Now the enemy found themselves surrounded by ships they thought they had destroyed. Captain Hayes launched every fighter the Warhawk carried. The small craft swarmed through the Devourer fleet like angry hornets, their weapons targeting specific systems with surgical precision. Enemy ships began losing power, their weapons going offline one by one. The USS Lightning emerged from stealth directly above a massive Devourer command ship. Captain Davis had only seconds before the enemy detected his presence, but seconds were all he needed. The Lightning's quantum torpedoes punched through the command ship's hull and detonated inside its core systems. "Phase 3, Morrison announced. This was the moment humanity had prepared for. Every ship in the fleet fired simultaneously, their weapons coordinated by AI systems that could calculate trajectories across light years in microseconds. The combined firepower of 50 human ships struck the Devourer fleet like the fist of an angry god. Captain Rodriguez watched in awe as enemy ships simply disintegrated under the focused assault. The USS Thunder's main guns fired continuously, each shot guided by computers that predicted enemy movements with impossible accuracy. The Devourers tried to return fire, but their weapons could not track targets that moved like the human ships did. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Devourer fleet had been completely destroyed. 3,000 enemy ships reduced to drifting wreckage. The path to the galactic core was clear, but Morrison knew this was only the beginning. The Devourers would send more ships, larger fleets, and somewhere in the darkness their masters were watching and learning. The real war was just starting. "Signal all Federation worlds," he ordered. "Tell them the galaxy is safe for now. But this threat will return. When it does, humanity will be ready." The ancient war machines had awakened, and they would not sleep again until every last enemy was destroyed. Admiral Jake Morrison opened his eyes and felt the cold bite of recycled air fill his lungs. The cryogenic chamber hissed as it finished the wake-up cycle. His body ached from 300 years of frozen sleep, but his mind was sharp and focused. Atlas had done its job well. He sat up slowly and looked around the medical bay of the USS Vengeance. Other chambers were opening around him, releasing the skeleton crew that had volunteered to stay behind when humanity left known space. Each person had accepted that they might never see their families again, that they would spend centuries waiting for a threat that might never come. Now that threat was here. "Good morning, Admiral," said Commander Lisa Park as she helped him out of the chamber. Her voice was hoarse from the wake-up process, but her eyes were alert. "Atlas briefed me while you were coming around. The situation is bad." Morrison stood on unsteady legs and accepted the uniform she handed him. The blue and gray fabric felt strange after so long, but familiar. How bad? 12 star systems consumed. Billions dead. The Federation is down to their last stronghold on Sanctuary Prime. The enemy calls themselves the Devourers. Park pulled up a holographic display that showed the tactical situation. They are machine intelligences from dark space. They consume matter to build more ships and spread across the galaxy. Morrison studied the data as he dressed. The Devourers fought exactly like the theoretical enemies humanity had prepared for. Relentless machines with no fear, no mercy, and no way to negotiate. perfect opponents for the weapons they had built. Status of the defense network? He asked. All nodes are coming online. The automated yards at Titan are already building new ships. The hidden fleets at Wolf 359 and Proxima Centauri are mobilizing. We have 47 capital ships ready for immediate deployment, with more coming online every hour. Morrison nodded and walked to the command deck. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see other ships emerging from their hiding places in the outer system. The sleek destroyer USS Lightning appeared from behind an asteroid. The massive carrier USS Warhawk uncloaked near Jupiter's moons. Each vessel was a masterpiece of military engineering, built not for exploration, but for war. On the main display, Atlas showed him the full scope of the Terran defense network. Hidden bases on dead worlds, automated shipyards in empty systems, and fleets of unmanned vessels waiting for activation codes. Humanity had spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment. "Sir, incoming transmission from Sanctuary Prime," reported Lieutenant Sam Davis from the communications station. "They are requesting immediate assistance." "How long to get there?" Morrison asked. 6 hours at maximum burn," replied his helmsman, Lieutenant Carroll Thompson. "Too long. The planet will fall before we arrive." Morrison thought for a moment, then turned to Park. "What about the advance fleet?" "Already deployed. Captain Danny Hayes took the Warhawk and 4 destroyers through hyperspace 20 minutes. Go. They should arrive at Sanctuary Prime in 1 hour." Morrison smiled grimly. Hayes was one of their best tactical commanders, and the Warhawk carried enough firepower to level a continent. If anyone could buy them time, it was him. Across the galaxy, other human forces were awakening. On Europa, Captain Amy Rodriguez stepped out of her cryogenic chamber aboard the heavy cruiser USS Thunder. Her ship was one of 50 vessels hidden in the ice caves beneath the moon's surface. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who had accepted the ultimate sacrifice. "Status report," she demanded as her crew rushed to their stations. "All systems green, Captain," replied her first officer, Commander Tony Lewis. "We are receiving deployment orders from Admiral Morrison. Our target is the Devourer fleet attacking the mining colonies in the Vega system." Rodriguez nodded and took her place in the captain's chair. The Thunder was designed to fight multiple enemies at once, with weapons that could track dozens of targets simultaneously. Against the Devourers, it would need every advantage. On the hidden base at Wolf 359, Captain Steve Chen watched as automated systems launched fighter squadrons into space. Each fighter was controlled by an advanced AI that could react faster than any living pilot. The pilots had called them ghosts because they moved through space like spirits, impossible to predict or counter. "How many fighters are we launching?" asked his tactical officer, Lieutenant Beth Williams. 2,000 in the first wave. Another 1,000 will be ready in 6 hours. Chen studied the tactical display showing Devourer movements. "The enemy has superior numbers, but they have never faced our technology. They are about to learn why humanity left the galaxy." At Sanctuary Prime, Captain Zarath watched in amazement as human ships appeared in her system. The lead vessel was smaller than the Devourer battleships, but it moved with purpose and precision that made her nervous. This was not the clumsy movement of a desperate last stand. This was the calculated approach of a predator. "Devourer fleet is moving to intercept," reported Lieutenant Kextel. "They outnumber the humans 5-1. "Poor odds," muttered Commander Veltar. Zarath was not so sure. Something about the way the human ships positioned themselves suggested they were not concerned about the numbers. They spread out in a formation she did not recognize, each ship taking a specific position that seemed random but felt deliberate. The lead human ship opened communications. Sanctuary Prime, this is Captain Danny Hayes aboard the USS Warhawk. Stand by for combat operations. We recommend you maintain distance from the engagement zone. Captain Hayes, Zarath responded, you are heavily outnumbered. Perhaps you should... Wait for reinforcements. There was a pause before Hayes replied. His voice carried a tone that made her skin crawl with unease. Captain, we appreciate your concern, but you called for help, and help is what you are going to get. Warhawk out. The first Devourer ship fired its main weapon, a beam of pure energy that could punch through a mountain. The human destroyer USS Lightning simply was not there when the beam arrived. It had moved 3 kilometers in the time it took the weapon to travel that distance. The Lightning fired back. Its weapons were smaller than the Devourer guns, but they struck with surgical precision. The Devourer ship's shields collapsed, and its hull began to buckle. Secondary explosions rippled along its length as critical systems failed. How did they do that? Kextal whispered. More human ships entered the battle. The Warhawk launched flights of unmanned fighters that swarmed around. The Devourer fleet like angry insects. Each fighter was no bigger than a shuttle, but they carried weapons that could cripple ships 10 times their size. The Devourers tried to adapt, targeting the fighters with point defense systems, but the human drones moved in patterns that seemed to predict where the enemy would fire. They dodged weapons that had not been fired yet, and struck at weak points that should have been impossible to identify. Captain Rodriguez arrived with the second wave of human ships. The USS Thunder and its escort fleet dropped out of hyperspace behind the Devourer formation and opened fire immediately. The enemy found themselves caught between 2 human forces, unable to concentrate their firepower effectively. This is impossible, Veltar said as he watched the battle. The humans are outnumbered 3-1, but they are winning. Zarath nodded slowly. The humans were not just winning, they were dominating. Every move they made seemed planned, every shot perfectly aimed. It was as if they had fought this exact battle before and knew exactly how it would end. Captain Chen's ghost fighters arrived from Wolf 359 and began attacking Devourer ships from unexpected angles. The enemy machines tried to target them, but the fighters moved like nothing the Devourers had encountered. They appeared from nowhere, struck vital systems, and vanished before return fire could reach them. Within 2 hours, the Devourer fleet was destroyed. Not defeated or driven away, but completely eliminated. The human ships had not lost a single vessel. Admiral Morrison's main fleet arrived to find the battle already over. He surveyed the wreckage of enemy ships and the intact human formation with satisfaction. Humanity's ancient war machines had performed exactly as designed. Well done, people, he broadcast to all human ships. Phase 1 is complete. Now we take the fight to them. The shields around Sanctuary Prime flickered like dying stars. Captain Zarath pressed her 6-fingered hand against the cold metal wall of the command center and felt the vibrations of enemy fire eating through their defenses. Her blue skin had turned pale with fear and exhaustion. She had not slept in 3 days. Captain, the eastern shield grid is failing, called out Lieutenant Kexatal from his station. The young Altarian's voice cracked with stress. His large black eyes reflected the red warning lights that flashed across every screen in the room. Zarath walked to the main display and stared at the tactical map. Red dots surrounded their planet like angry insects. Each dot was a Devourer ship, machines that consumed everything in their path. They had already eaten 12 star systems. Billions of lives had simply vanished into their metal bellies. "How long do we have?" she asked. 6 hours, maybe less, replied Commander Veltar, her second in command. The elderly Calarian's tentacles twitched nervously as he spoke. "The evacuation. Ships were destroyed yesterday. We have nowhere to run." Zareth closed her eyes and tried to think. The Galactic Federation had fought these machines for 2 years. Every battle ended the same way. The Devourers would arrive, surround a system, and then consume it piece by piece. No weapon could stop them. No strategy worked against them. "There must be something we can do," she whispered. Lieutenant Kextal turned from his communications. "Station. Captain, what about the old human array?" "What about it?" Zareth asked. "The humans left it behind when they disappeared. We kept it running as a monument to their friendship with the Federation. Maybe we could use it to send a distress call." Commander Veltar shook his head. "The humans vanished 300 years ago. Even if some survived, they were explorers and diplomats, not warriors. What could they do against this threat?" Zareth stared at the tactical display again. More red dots appeared at the edge of the system. The Devourers were bringing reinforcements. Soon their small fleet would become a massive swarm. "Show me the human array," she said. Kextal brought up the technical specifications on his screen. The ancient communication system was still functional, though no one had used it in decades. It could broadcast on frequencies the humans once used to talk across vast distances of space. "The humans were peaceful," Veltar said again. "They left because they did not want to fight in our wars. Why would they help us now?" "Because they were our friends," Zareth replied. "And because this threat will not stop with us. If the Devourers consume the Federation, they will spread across the galaxy. Eventually, they will find wherever the humans went." The command center shook as another wave of enemy fire hit their shields. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. The lights dimmed for a moment before the backup power systems kicked in. "Do it," Zareth ordered. "Send the message." Kextal's hands moved quickly across his controls. The human array came online with a deep humming sound that seemed to vibrate through the entire building. Lights appeared on panels that had been dark for centuries. "What should I say?" he asked. Zareth thought for a moment. "Keep it simple. Tell them who we are. Tell them what is happening. Give them our location. Ask for help." Kextal nodded and began to record the message. His voice was steady despite the fear in his eyes. "This is the Galactic Federation to any remaining human forces. We are under attack by machines called the Devourers. They have consumed 12 star systems and are now attacking Sanctuary Prime. Our coordinates are attached to this message. Please, if anyone is listening, we need help. We are dying here." He looked up at Zareth. "Should I send it?" "Yes. Broadcast it on all human frequencies. Keep sending it until the shields fail." The message went out into the dark of space, traveling faster than light through subspace channels the humans had built long ago. It raced past dead worlds and empty space stations, through asteroid fields and nebulae, carrying its desperate plea for help. Far away, in the cold outer reaches of the Sol system, something heard it. The USS Vengeance drifted in the darkness beyond Neptune's orbit. The massive ship was 3 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could crack planets. It had waited here for 300 years, watching and listening. Deep inside the ship's core, an artificial intelligence called Atlas processed the incoming transmission. The AI had been dormant for decades, running only basic maintenance routines. but the human distress frequency triggered ancient protocols. Atlas began to wake up. Systems that had been offline for years came back to life. Sensors swept the galaxy, gathering information. Communication arrays reached out to other ships, other stations, other sleeping guardians scattered across dozens of star systems. The AI analyzed the message from Sanctuary Prime. It studied the tactical data about the Devourers. It calculated threat levels and response options. Within seconds, Atlas understood what was happening and what needed to be done. The humans had not abandoned the galaxy. They had simply moved into the shadows, leaving behind their most powerful weapons to guard against threats the peaceful Federation could not imagine. The Devourers were exactly the kind of enemy they had prepared for. Atlas sent activation codes to sleeping fleets. Across human space, automated shipyards began building new vessels. Cryogenic systems started wake-up procedures for skeleton crews who had volunteered to stay behind. The ancient war machine of humanity began to stir. On Sanctuary Prime, the shields finally failed. Devourer ships moved closer to the planet, their energy weapons charging for the final attack. The command center filled with the sound of alarms and the smell of burning electronics. "Captain, we are detecting massive energy signatures," Kextal called out. His voice was filled with confusion. "Something big is coming through hyperspace." Zarath looked at the display. New contacts were appearing at the edge of the system. But these were not more Devourer ships. The energy signatures were different. Older, more powerful. "Are those Federation reinforcements?" Veltar asked. Kextal shook his head. "No, sir. The computer does not recognize these ship types, but the configuration matches ancient human designs. On the main screen, they could see shapes emerging from hyperspace, massive vessels with angular hulls and weapon arrays that dwarfed anything the Federation had ever built, ships that looked like they were designed for only one purpose: war." A new voice came through the communications system. It spoke in the old human language, but the translation system still worked. "Sanctuary Prime, this is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Terran Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. Hold your position. The cavalry is coming." Zarath stared at the screen in amazement. The humans had not only survived, they had answered the call. But these were not the peaceful explorers who had left 3 centuries ago. These were something else entirely. The first human ship opened fire on the Devourer fleet. The weapon beam was so bright it lit up the entire system like a new star. When the light faded, 3 Devourer ships had simply vanished. The ancient war. Machines of humanity had finally awakened, and they were very, very angry.